Welcome to Rider Nation Station, presented by American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistics partner, investing in Rider Nation Station and St. Mary's, Ohio, and to our other fine sponsors.
Thank you for joining us this week with Rules of the Game. I'm Zach Farrell. I'm joined again by Mark Sisko. Thanks, Mark, for coming.
Always a pleasure, Zach.
Mark, wanted to talk a little bit this week. In a little bit, we have a lot of clips from the great Rough Rider victory over Shawnee this week.
Okay.
But first off, wanted to talk about some of the more memorable games that you may have officiated in, or locations. Maybe you could share something with the viewers.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I was fortunate enough to do a state final several years ago when Pickle was in the championship. They had their great running back, the Brandon Sane, I believe, played for them. Matter of fact, we had that team twice back-to-back in the semifinals in Dayton, and then in the finals up at the Tiger Stadium in Massillon. That's always a nice place to work. Locally, there's always great games. One stands out in my mind was the Wapakoneta Kenton game several years ago when Coach Fry was at Wapakoneta. Kenton came to town, and the atmosphere at that point was Week 10. It was for the league title.
Wow.
And it was, people all over the place there. It was a really great atmosphere. But that can be said for a lot of games around here. The regular season, MAC, Northwest Conference, WBL. It's always great football in Northwest Ohio.
Excellent. Yeah, lots of opportunities for officials around here to see some really good games while they're officiating.
Correct.
Of course, they got to focus on those calls, though, right?
That's correct as well.
Can't enjoy it too much.
That's right.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we're going to look at some of the interesting calls from the game on Friday night.
Good enough.
Thanks.
Guarneri's on Spring Street, home of the signature Big Ralph Sub, Pizza, and Calzone. Come try our thirst-quenching Rider Aid before, during, and after the game. Post-game live music every Friday night. It's Guarneri's. Give them a call, 419-394-2244.
Thank you to our sponsors, and welcome back to Rules of the Game with Mark Sisko. Mark, the first clip here that we want to look at was a blindside hit.
Okay.
This was on the called on Shawnee. It was actually on one of the Rough Riders. You're going to see here in the clip, number 35, Tanner Howe, rolling out to make the tackle.
Right.
Gets hit right there in the middle of the field.
Yeah, the blindside block, the rule was in place a couple years ago, so it's supposed to take some of the viciousness out of a block like that. It was 2 years ago, a perfectly legal block from the side. It wasn't in the back. All right. Now the rule basically says, look, you should give the defender a chance to see what's coming at him. Obviously, in that play, the defender was coming from, or the offensive guy was coming behind the defender, and 35 had no clue that he was about to get hit. Now, the other part of the rule is that the contact should be forcible, which means there's some force to it. Is that enough? Obviously, they called it. It was,
and he was knocked down.
And it was knocked down, but the rule doesn't say that you must be knocked down. Mm-hmm. Probably in the heat of the battle, you're going to call that as a blindside block. Now, if the offensive lineman there would have blocked 35 with open hands, with his hands, no foul.
Okay.
Even though he couldn't see him coming, that would not have been a foul, because the theory is if you have hands out there, it takes some of the blow out of the contact and is safer for everybody involved.
So one of the ways that players can address this is by using their hands more on that
Correct.
sort of thing, instead of just trying to put a big hit on a person.
Trying to put a big shoulder into him and everything else. And kids are starting to adjust to that rule. But, it's tough. You're looking for the big hit or trying to peel somebody off like that. It did the job, but hands out there on that shoulder would have done the same thing.
Right, and you don't want to risk holding them, but you want to engage the person without necessarily taking the big shot like that.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay.
It's a safety foul more than anything else. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're going to look at a couple more clips here. A couple of different situations here with a legal procedure and a legal shift. And I think maybe the viewers at home might be a little confused on this, or we wanted to address it. But on the first one here, you have a legal procedure foul on the wingback on the field goal there.
Right. That's classified as a false start. He makes a move before the ball snapped. So, that's not legal. You got to stay set on the offensive side. And when he moved like that, the official did a great job of shutting that play down and not preventing anything else from happening there.
Right, and I guess the key about that is if it's a false start like that, it's a dead ball foul.
That's correct.
So the ball doesn't have to be snapped. It just happens when it happens, and the down gets replayed.
Correct. And a lot of times you'll see maybe the ball will be snapped just after an action like that, and the teams are moving the kids and the officials are shutting it down. Well, it takes a little bit to get the flag in the air, the whistle in the mouth, blow the whistle signal, and everything else. So that foul happened before the ball was snapped, and you have a dead ball. Nothing can happen after that.
All right. The second similar play, then we have Shawnee actually one of the wingback steps out like he's going to go in motion, and then the wide receiver that's in the slot there comes back into the backfield. So. I think at first we thought this may be a false start. We were wondering why it wasn't called immediately.
Right.
Instead, it looks like they didn't throw the flag until the ball was snapped. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, number one, the wingback over there certainly looks like he misses the count and does something that and then realizes, oops, I shouldn't have moved. If they would have stopped the play right there, it would have been a false start and move him back 5 yards, and away we go. The officials let it go. Number 8 then goes in motion. So you've got two guys basically moving around at the same time, and then they snap the football without either of those or both of them getting set for a second. That creates the illegal shift penalty at that point.
Okay, so the penalty that was called there was an illegal shift, not a false start.
Correct.
And illegal shift then has to be called when the ball is snapped.
Correct, because the theory is that both players could reset. They could fix the potential foul before the ball snapped. That didn't happen here. Number 8 stayed in motion when the other guy was in motion at the same time, so therefore they would have both had to reset for a second before the ball could have been snapped or somebody else could have went in motion.
And that's something that we talked about in an earlier show, I believe.
Right.
And so there's a great example of it. One other thing, when I see two people in shifting or going in motion, it's typically to the same side, from one side to another. In that case, you had potentially, if the wingback would have kept moving, you would have had people crossing past. Is that okay?
Not a problem there at all. I mean, you could have a lineman that possibly moved out of a stance and maybe a wide receiver that shifted up or back, and all that stuff can happen prior to the snap. But when you have all that stuff happening, everybody must be set for 1 second, and that's the key right there.
Okay.
Is that 1 second everybody's still before anything else can happen.
And then we talked before, after that 1 second, one of them can still go into motion, and as long as they're not moving forward, the ball can still be snapped then.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
A lot of interesting pre-snap shifting. That's those are the things though that watching in the stands you don't pick up on from a basic standpoint. This is more advanced type of rules and confusing.
There are some things out there that the offenses have to adhere to, and even linemen going from a hands-on knees to a hands-on ground position is considered a shift. So what you'll see sometimes is a lineman will shift, and then almost immediately, let's say a wingback will start in motion. Well, after the lineman shift, he has to wait 1 second before he moves to make his movement legal. So you can get into some pretty tricky stuff sometimes.
All right. Well, I want to check a couple late hits here.
Okay.
So on both teams, the first one here was on Shawnee. We could see the St. Mary's running back, I think that's Ethan Wedding out there, goes out of bounds, and then it looks like the second Shawnee guy kind of comes in a little bit late there, 38.
It looks like number 38 give a little extra push there, and that was unnecessary. The running back was already out of bounds. Was it hard? No, it was not hard. Some would say that's WBL football, but no, that's they've really clamped down on that in the past years, and it was unnecessary. So it was a good foul.
And I think more than just the player getting hit late, they're worried about the player getting hit, driven into equipment, the bench,
absolutely.
hurting somebody on the sideline.
Yep.
So this second play here is the kickoff. Then St. Mary's kicked off to Shawnee. I think this was called on number 4. And if you see at the end here, number 4 does a great job, Walter, of tracking down the runner, but just rides him a little long out of bounds there and almost hits the bench back there.
Yeah, it looks like he rode him a little bit, but that's a tough one because the tackle started, apparently it looked like it started inbounds, and he's just hanging on just to – because he's not going to let go at that point. So the officials have to make a decision. Is this a little bit too much? I mean, the tackle starts there. It's right at the sideline.
Right.
And, yes, does it look bad because it goes into the bench area? Yes, it does. That's debatable on whether or not that was a roughing type situation. Again, safety foul, you're probably going to get that called more than not.
Really tough for a defender too, as you're trying to run across the field on a kickoff to know exactly where you're at, where the line is on that.
Correct.
On that. But I guess too, once you start to see the other players, maybe you just got to let the guy go. Maybe it doesn't look as bad if you're not taking him down.
And there would have been, I mean, for number 4 there, for him to let go there, that's hard because you've got a hold of the runner, and just to let go, nobody's going to do that.
Sure.
Because you're going to ride him down to try to protect yourself too as you go down.
It's against your instinct.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break here, and so on the flip side of this, we're going to be looking at a few other plays, including a spearing hit, and of course the controversial controversial call right before half. So be sure to join us on the other side.
Guarneri's on Spring Street, home of the signature Big Ralph sub, pizza, and calzone. Come try our thirst-quenching Rider Aid before, during, and after the game. Post-game live music every Friday night. It's Guarneri's. Give them a call, 419-394-2244.
Welcome back to Rules of the Game. Thank you again to our sponsors. Right here, Mark, we're going to have a spearing hit called.
Okay.
I don't think this gets called too much, but we're starting to see it a lot more here. This is a fairly unique spearing call because it's being called on the offensive player.
Okay.
We have the Shawnee throwing a quick pass out there. Number 43 there for St. Mary's right at the end of the play. Another wide receiver from Shawnee comes in and just puts his head down, goes right into the side of him there.
That was a pretty obvious thing there. That was late, and he comes in leading with the helmet. That's the one thing that coaches really try to get out of the game is keep the head out of that situation, because only bad things happen when you lower your head and come in there. That's not only could the receiver of the hit get hurt, but more than a lot of times than not, it's the person committing the foul that's going to get hurt because of the neck is in bad position, things of that nature. So that definitely is a safety thing that everybody wants to get out of the game.
Could he have been ejected for that? Is this something that they're going to start?
That one, it's possible if they deemed it flagrant. Now, was it not? Maybe the kid tripped coming in and put the helmet down. Maybe he wasn't trying to do what he did. It's tough to say. We weren't there. Looking at the film, probably not. It probably wasn't enough for an ejection, but it certainly drew a foul, and it should have.
Will they look at cumulative then? If he would have done that again later in the game,
does
that make a difference?
If the officials recognize, hey, this guy, this is the second time he's doing this, now we may have a situation where the officials could do that. Probably more than anything else, they would probably go to the coach and go, hey, something's not up here. We need you to talk to him. At least do that, because we can't have what's going on.
Get him under control or
Correct.
something. Right. I guess I'm thinking right now about the Burfict situation recently in the NFL.
Yeah, I saw that play too, and that was just, with his reputation, probably some things happened there and obviously, from what I understand, he was suspended for the season, if I read right. So probably rightly so.
Yeah. So want to address it while they're young here in high school, so we don't have more of that situation come up in the future.
Correct.
The next play we're going to have here was a spiked ball by Shawnee on their drive before the half. Wanted to talk about what the rules are for spiking a ball. Normally, I think people would think maybe that's intentional grounding, but a lot of us know that you can spike a ball and kill the clock. So what is the rule behind that?
Well, he was trying to kill the clock there. There's no doubt about that. In high school, the rule says you must take a hand-to-hand snap, which the quarterback did.
So not shotgun.
Not shotgun, all right, and it must be thrown forward to the ground, all right, immediately after receiving the hand. And you're going to give him a step and a half to clear the center and all that good stuff. So that play was executed perfectly by Shawnee. He did exactly what he should have done. If he'd have been back in shotgun and taken the snap and then thrown it forward, that would have been a foul for intentional grounding at that point, which would have cost him 5 yards and lost the down. All right?
Right.
Plus, the officials probably would have started the clock. So he's trying to save clock at that point. So you get all kinds of bad things happening if you don't do this properly.
Could be really huge there for somebody
Oh.
if they do it improper. And you're saying if they would take 2 or 3 steps and just throw it down, that would
Can't
be
do
improper.
that. It's got to be immediately after receiving the hand-to-hand snap. What sometimes happens there, the quarterback, he'll take it and he'll throw it forward to the ground, and maybe it might hit one of his linemen, let's say in the heel, back of the leg, and I've seen the ball pop up right back in the quarterback's hands, and then he'll try to throw it down again. That would be illegal.
Okay.
Because he's lost the immediate factor out of that. Even though
Right.
he might still be within a step or two of the line of scrimmage, the immediacy of the play goes away with that first throw.
It's been a couple seconds
It's-
later.
yep.
It's not immediate
Yep.
anymore.
Yep.
All right. So if you're going to spike the ball, it has to be swift and certain,
Correct.
like our justice system.
The thing you look for there, though, is sometimes those kids will get it, and instead of going forward, they'll just slap it down, and it might go behind them,
Oh, yeah.
which in theory is a backward pass, which is a live ball. Now,
Wow.
officials sometimes know what's coming, and they're just going to kill it anyway, but it can happen.
Interesting. All
Yeah.
right. Who knew that just a simple kill on the clock could have so many different angles to it?
Correct.
So, thank you for that. Okay, we're here. We're at the controversial play of the
All
week.
right.
This was so just to set up the situation. This was at the end of the second quarter. Only I think 7-8 seconds left on the clock. The Shawnee quarterback is rolling back to make a deep pass to try to get him in field goal position or maybe score a touchdown there going into the halftime. There's a couple issues I wanted to look at here. The first one is at the bottom of your screen around the 30-yard line, 32-yard line. You'll see those a few receivers there kind of cross pass. I wondered what constituted a pick in high school.
Well, if the viewers are seeing this stop action right there, you see the St. Mary's kid here on the outside being approached by a Shawnee offensive player and number 9 cutting in behind. That could conceivably be a pick in that situation.
And that's illegal.
And that is illegal because now what you've got is you've got offensive pass interference, and what's happening is it's allowing number 9 to come clear. And, there was a little contact, but now we're going to see the quarterback just throw it downfield tremendously, and
You have it caught
you
there
have it
and
caught
brought
there,
out of bounds.
and it's out of bounds. Now, what I don't know is whether that's number 9 right there that's making the catch. So if it was, then conceivably this could have been ruled offensive pass interference.
Okay.
Now, what happens is sometimes on plays like that, if the ball's thrown to the other side of the field,
I think that is number 9.
and
actually.
so in truth, this probably, when you look at it on film, should have been called.
Okay.
Because that receiver comes clear and ends up making the catch. Now, normally, quarterback rolls out that, to his left like that and leaves the action behind him. Any contact that's going on back behind him won't be called because it has no bearing on the play downfield. This, however, did.
Okay. And I guess that's hard for an official to see, though, that to know that it happened over here and then 5 seconds later that guy's across the field.
With 5 guys, it's hard because they lose track of where they started, and all of a sudden, we're going into zone coverage and we're just officiating the action and probably not knowing where that guy started or what happened in there.
And if the quarterback would have targeted him earlier,
then
right after the pick, it might
that would have been
called.
easier to sell. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And then let's talk about the real controversial part of this. So,
Okay.
You can see it on the Rider Nation Station replay, which, by the way, is available on this same YouTube station. You can see in the play we have a electronic that is connected to the game clock. So we have the clock on there on the screen, and you can see that when the receiver caught the ball and fell out of bounds, it appeared to be 1 second left on the clock.
Okay.
Now in the stadium, the clock the clock operator allowed the clock to run out there.
Sure.
When is the clock operator supposed to stop the clock? When is the official supposed to call it dead there?
Okay.
And what sort of factors can adjust that? The officials did it here, but do the officials always have the right to put the seconds back on the clock?
They
like
sure
that?
do. We have the ability to adjust the time to what should be done. All right, but we have to have knowledge that there was, time left or time should have run out or something along those lines to make an adjustment. In this situation, if you look at the official running down the sideline, I think he does a pretty good job of trying to get the clock stopped because he's moving and waving and holding the arms over his head in a clock-stopping manner. So he's doing what he should be done. Now, when that happens, So here's the play right here. He's out of bounds. The official is stopping it.
Right there, yep.
So, and he's got it right away. Now, we're all human. So by the time he decides that the clock should be stopped and the operator sees his signal and flips the switch to stop it, you could have a second, 2 second and a half or more run off the clock.
Right.
So there's got to be an allowance for the human factor in there. Now, if he knew, the official knew, or somebody knew that there was 1 second left when the ball was out of bounds, then sure, we're going to put the second back up on the clock.
Okay.
Some clocks have tenths of seconds where you could put 0.1, 0.2, 0.8, something along those lines. But you have to have knowledge that, in fact, there was time left when the ball became dead.
Are the officials supposed to use, when they hear a whistle? That
The whistle is not necessarily,
the
see, that's another fallacy too. Whistles really do not stop plays other than if we have an inadvertent whistle, and heaven forbid that happens. But the plays kill themselves. The whistle just confirms that the play is dead.
Okay.
So the official running down the sideline, if he had a look at the clock, his first look would have been out of bounds, up at the clock, and then wave the hands.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the clock was at the other end, you may have, let's say, the back judge looking at the play and then at the clock at the same time. But again, you've got sideline clock. Was it there? Was it not there?
Well, and that official in that situation is running towards the south end zone where the clock is as he's waving his arm. So theoretically, he could be
and he may have
seeing
had a
the
look
ball and seeing the scoreboard at the same time.
And the fact that he cut in right away and didn't stay on the sideline and say, "Look, we're out of clock, no big deal." He cut in right away, and I if I would guess, he was coming in to say, "I've got a second still left on the clock."
Okay.
That's my guess.
And it's easy for us to see with the replay, but I just wondered, in real time, how are they able to differentiate that split second there as to where he landed, where it was? But I guess if he had a view of it, that may be what happened in that situation, and we can't fault them for actually getting it correctly as we were
That's
able to see in
a
the
good crew
replay.
working that game. I know those guys and the wing guy on that sideline. He's a good official. He's been involved in more than one state championship game. He knows what he's doing. So, yeah, he would have been tuned to that. So, you got to assume that they got it right.
Well, Shawnee ended up making that field goal, but the Rough Riders came out of the locker room pretty heated. So maybe there was some good motivation from the call anyway, even though it was the right call.
There you go.
That's football, though.
That's football.
All right, so that's all the time that we have today, Mark. I wanted to go ahead and remind our viewers at home to please subscribe to the Rider Nation station, like the video, share the videos both on Facebook and on YouTube. That's how we're going to grow as a station and be able to bring you more great programming. Also, if you have any questions, if you have anything that's been eating your brain for 20 years since you were in football or something, go ahead and send us either an email or the easiest way is just leave a message in the comments of the Facebook or the YouTube video, and we'll go ahead and try to address it on one of these future shows here.
Good deal.
Thank you again, Mark,
Thanks
and we'll
a lot.
see you guys next week.
This episode of Rider Nation Station has been sponsored by American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistic partner, investing in the St. Mary's community.
Guarneri's on Spring Street, home of the signature Big Ralph sub, pizza, and calzone. Come try our thirst-quenching Rider Aid before, during, and after the game. Post-game live music every Friday night. It's Guarneri's. Give them a call, 419-394-2244.